Howdy everyone, Legion here from the Gamer's Advocate. Like many of you, I was an absolute whirlwind of emotions when the Game Awards dropped the reveal trailer for Fate of the Old Republic. And honestly, I'm still processing it. Because Knights of the Old Republic and its sequel aren't just popular games. They're not just fan favorites. They are widely regarded as some of the greatest video games ever made. And I don't say that lightly or as hyperbole.
I know what you're going to say. I'm so beautiful, I'm so attractive.
BioWare's original KOTOR set a gold standard for storytelling in gaming. It's consistently cited on greatest of all time lists, best RPGs, best Star Wars games, best narrative experiences, and even among the most iconic game reveals in industry history. Its influence is still felt today. And yet, despite all of that love, Knights of the Old Republic has not aged gracefully.
You also might want to check out the cantina. I used to go there when I was younger. A good place to get a drink and find out what's going on in the upper city.
Playing these games on modern systems is, frankly, a struggle. Without the dedication of modding communities, it's borderline impossible to experience them the way they deserve to be played. For years, fans have been asking, not even demanding, just hoping for a proper remake, or, at the very least, a remaster. Leading up to the Game Awards, there was a lot of buzz, a lot of speculation. Many of us were convinced this would finally be the moment. And then the trailer hit. But instead of a remake, we got something entirely unexpected. A brand new game set in the Old Republic era, led by Casey Hudson, the original creative mind behind Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect. That revelation stopped me cold. I didn't cheer. I didn't react immediately. I just sat there, processing. Because it wasn't what I thought I wanted, but I also wasn't disappointed. If anything, I was completely captivated. Seeing the callbacks, the tone, the echoes of the original games woven into something new, I felt this strange mix of nostalgia, curiosity, excitement, and caution, all at once. I was mesmerized, genuinely frozen in thought. Since that trailer dropped, we've learned a few more details, and I wanted to share some of those with you, not just as a content creator, but as a longtime Star Wars fan who's been following KOTOR since the day it first released. So let's talk about what Fate of the Old Republic might mean for the franchise, for the fans, and for the legacy of one of the most beloved eras in Star Wars gaming history. I wasn't even sure where to begin after the trailer ended, so I did what seemed the most logical. I followed the breadcrumbs. Right at the end of the reveal, there was a Learn More At link, swfotor.com. I went there immediately. At first, the site wasn't loading, which made me think they were intentionally holding things back so nothing leaked or shadow dropped before the trailer finished rolling. Once it did go live, though, I read everything I could get my hands on. That's when I realized the site belonged to Arcanaut Studios. Digging into the studio page revealed some interesting details. Arcanaut is a Canadian developer, founded in July of 2025, headquartered in Edmonton, Alberta, with additional offices in Kelowna, British Columbia. So yes, this is a very new studio. But what immediately caught my attention was their listed core values. The very first one? Passion. And if you know the Sith code, you already know where my mind went. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. I actually got goosebumps saying that. Whether intentional or not, that choice felt very deliberate and very Star Wars. From there, things got even more interesting. Casey Hudson is confirmed as both the CEO and the game director of Arcanaut Studios. That alone carries a lot of weight. The CFO is listed as Chris Bain, and I'll admit, this is where my Star Wars brain may have started running a little wild. I briefly wondered if that name might hint at a future crossover into Darth Bane-era territory. Now, to be clear, that's almost certainly just my imagination doing what it does best. But when you're dealing with the Old Republic, speculation kind of comes with the territory. Not long after the reveal, some early tweets began circulating suggesting that because the studio was so newly formed, we shouldn't expect to play Fate of the Old Republic until 2030 or later. Fortunately, Casey Hudson himself shut that down pretty quickly, responding with, "Don't worry about the not till 2030 rumors. Game will be out before then. I'm not getting any younger." Same, Casey. Same. After that, I moved on to the official press release, and there were a few key points that really stood out, especially given how much speculation and interpretation I've already seen across other channels and sites. First and foremost, the game is being developed in collaboration with Lucasfilm Games. That's huge. That means this story, and the characters introduced here, will be canon within Star Wars. No legends asterisk, no ambiguity. We're told players will assume the role of a Force user, journeying through what's described as a galaxy on the edge of rebirth. And I want to pause right there for a moment. Earlier, I made a light-hearted reference to Darth Bane and the end of the Old Republic, but personally, I don't believe this game is about the final collapse of the era. Introducing figures like Darth Bane or the Brotherhood of Darkness would open the door to entirely new themes, philosophies, and power structures. So much so that I'm not sure the game would still feel like a spiritual successor to Knights of the Old Republic, which is exactly how the press release describes it. For some added context, I've been a subscriber to Star Wars The Old Republic MMO since 2011, and even going off my admittedly imperfect memory, the Republic has fallen multiple times throughout Old Republic history. So when they say Edge of Rebirth, that could mean almost anything. A political collapse, a philosophical shift, a force-driven reckoning. We simply don't know yet. But I'll say this, I'm intrigued, deeply intrigued. There's also an interview linked directly on the site, an in-depth conversation between Casey Hudson and Kristen Baver that's well worth reading. In it, Hudson says, "Fate of the Old Republic represents an opportunity to explore a contemporary vision of a definitive Star Wars experience, using state-of-the-art technology and game design, and an all-new story crafted specifically to deliver on the combination of player agency and immersion in Star Wars that was at the heart of KOTOR." I've read that quote several times now, and the wording really matters, especially the emphasis on an entirely new story built around player agency. One of the unspoken truths about the original Knights of the Old Republic is that, while you could play dark side, the experience was very clearly weighted toward a light side path. That's the version most people played, and it's the one that's generally accepted as canon. Designing a game where both light side and dark side choices are equally meaningful, with real narrative weight and consequences, is incredibly difficult. But the idea of a modern Star Wars RPG where a dark side run is just as complete, impactful, and thoughtfully written as a light side one? That's exciting. That's ambitious. And that's exactly the kind of challenge you'd expect Casey Hudson to take on. Now, when it comes to the phrase spiritual successor, I do want to temper expectations a bit. It's worth remembering that Star Wars The Old Republic MMO was also marketed as a spiritual successor to KOTOR. So while the phrase tells us a lot about tone, philosophy, and design goals, it doesn't necessarily mean we're getting a direct continuation of those original stories. That perspective lines up nicely with comments from Douglas Riley, VP and General Manager of Lucasfilm Games, who added, Being set in the past gives us an immense amount of open space to tell new, original Star Wars stories, while staying true to the spirit of the galaxy we all love. There are, quite literally, infinite stories to tell. While we will always honor and celebrate the core saga, it's crucial to explore new territory, meet new characters, and see new parts of the galaxy. To me, that quote strongly suggests this is not Knights of the Old Republic 3. Instead, it sounds like a game set apart, whether by time period, story focus, characters, or all three. This could quite literally be any story within the Old Republic era, unburdened by the need to directly follow Revan, the Exile, or the events we already know. And honestly, that might be for the best. As for the trailer itself, there are a lot of small, fascinating details that hint at what this story might be about, and I definitely want to look at a few of those things. But if I'm being completely fair, the trailer also feels like something else. It feels like a statement of intent, a tone setter. Perhaps it's a recruitment call, not just for players, but for talent. This is Casey Hudson planting a flag and saying, "This is what we want to build." And on that note, if you happen to be watching this, Mr. Hudson, I just want you to know, I am available. I don't want to turn this into a 2-hour video, something I'm very capable of doing. So let's shift our focus to the trailer itself. Because honestly, I loved it. Right away, the trailer tells us this isn't going to be a traditional Star Wars presentation. There's no classic Lucasfilm logo opening the sequence, no slow pan from the stars down to a planet. Instead, we're immediately locked onto a single ship, moving with purpose, headed somewhere specific. There's no dialogue, no exposition, just motion and intent. Even the ship itself is intriguing. I had a hard time identifying the exact model, but visually it bears a resemblance to the Fondor Hallcraft from Andor. It's entirely possible the design was used simply because it was readily available for the trailer, but if it is intentional, that choice leans into a more practical, lived-in Star Wars aesthetic, rather than something overly stylized. The music reinforces that idea. At first, it's subdued, almost unfamiliar. It doesn't immediately scream Star Wars, and I think that's deliberate. It allows the atmosphere to breathe before tapping into nostalgia. When the ship arrives at a snow-capped mountainous region, my mind immediately jumped to the Mass Effect reveal from a few years back, the one where Liara discovers the N7 armor fragment. That same sense of quiet mystery, of scale, of possibility. I was genuinely stunned, just sitting there wondering what kind of story we were about to step into. Then, around the 27-second mark, we hear it. That familiar pan flute, and my heart started racing. That sound alone carries decades of Star Wars memory with it. The moment it kicks in, the trailer stops being interesting and becomes personal. One detail that really stood out to me, though, is that it's raining, not snowing. That feels intentional. Snow immediately brings to mind worlds like Hoth, Ilum, or Karlak. Rain, on the other hand, suggests something colder, but not frozen. Something harsh, wild, and perhaps more ancient. The Gizka hopping off in a scene reinforces this imagery. If you've played Star Wars: The Old Republic, one planet that fits that description is Belsavis, a cold, mountainous world known less for its climate and more for the Rakata technology found on its surface. Now, to be clear, this is pure speculation on my part, but when we see the crashed ship later in the trailer, one that bears a striking resemblance to the Leviathan, Darth Malak's flagship that crashed on Rakata Prime in the original KOTOR, it's hard not to start connecting dots. Whether that resemblance is symbolic, coincidental, or deeply intentional remains to be seen. As the pilot moves through the wreckage, we're introduced to two companions walking alongside her, and both are immediately intriguing. The companion on the right bears a strong resemblance to an HK series droid from the original games. The proportions are slightly different, the arms appear longer, But that could easily be a modernized model or a stylistic update rather than a completely new design. If this is an HK-type unit, that alone would be a powerful nod to Knights of the Old Republic's legacy. The second companion appears to be a Quarren. And yes, a Quarren, not a Quarian like Tali from Mass Effect. Quarren do appear periodically in the original KOTOR titles, and their inclusion here would be a fantastic choice. In the films, we're far more familiar with their shared homeworld counterparts, the Mon Calamari, but both species are capable of extensive cybernetic augmentation. That opens the door to some really interesting character design and storytelling possibilities. The pilot herself continues forward, dressed in a classic Force user's cape, but what I really appreciated is that she appears to be wearing padded armor beneath it. That detail matters. Force users during the Old Republic era were often depicted wearing gear that was more protective and tactical than the flowing robes we see in later eras of Star Wars. It's a subtle visual cue, but one that reinforces the time period and grounds the character in it. Immediately after, a deep, guttural bellow echoes from an oval-shaped opening ahead. Inside, we see what look like tentacles writhing amid red smoke, or possibly steam. And I'll be honest, I have no idea what that creature is. Then we hear it. That unmistakable sound. A lightsaber ignition is so iconic that we don't even need to see it. The audio alone tells the story. If you have theories, I genuinely love to hear them. Drop them in the comments. At this point, I've probably watched this trailer 50 times, and somehow I'm no less excited than I was the first time I saw it. Which, of course, brings me to speculation. Could this character be a descendant of Revan and Bastila Shan? We know that their son, Vanner Shan, went on to have children of his own, including a daughter named Risa Shan. Is it possible we're looking at a grandchild? Someone searching for answers about what truly happened to Revan? Maybe this is a character designed to bridge the Shan legacy, connecting the events of the original Knights of the Old Republic to the era explored in the Old Republic MMO. Or maybe I'm completely off the mark. And honestly, that's part of the fun. Whether my theories are spot on or wildly incorrect, one thing is certain. I cannot wait to discover what fate of the Old Republic has in store for us. Thank you so much for watching. If there's anything you think I got right, or completely wrong, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. We're a growing channel, and we release a weekly podcast covering topics that revolve around games, gaming, and gamers. If you'd like to support us with a free subscription here on YouTube, we'd be honored to have you join the community. Until next time, may the Force be with you. Always.